welcome back to my channel. So I'm back today with a review of this brush pen set from Stationery Island. They contacted me to see if I would be interested in testing out this set and letting you guys know what I thought. So of course, because I love brush pens and everything that is calligraphy related, I said yes. And I'm really excited to show this to you guys. So what we've got here, I will put some of the specs down in the description box down below, so things like the price and all that kind of stuff, so don't worry, just check down in the description box. This is going to be mostly about what they are, how they work, and how I like them. So let's get started. So this set comes with 12 pens plus a water brush. So it's got these cute little like snaps up here and this pull-out tray. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out everything and just move the box over to the side. There we go. So you'll see here, grab just the first one in here. They are pretty thin. Let me actually grab a Tombow. So compared to a Tombow, they are a bit shorter and a bit thinner. Obviously, I know these aren't the same style brush, but you guys know what size a Tombow is to give you an idea. And you have your main colors. So we've got, whoops, let me go ahead and dump everything out. I think that's gonna be easier. Oh goodness. All right, so now they're all backwards. So in terms of our colors, we have a lovely rainbow set. So red, orange, yellow, light green, light blue, dark blue, purple. Then we've got pink, brown, gray, and black. So I have to say that in terms of colors, personally, I know me in terms of like brush lettering and stuff, the gray and black, I am super happy that they included both of those in here. And in terms of doing art stuff, I think this is a pretty good mix to do a lot of different things. I mean, obviously it's not every single color, but the cool thing is they are also blendable. Which brings me to the last thing that's in here. They actually provide you with a brush pen, which this one actually reminds me a lot of the Kuretake, just like this, the styling of it, which let me go ahead and grab my Kuretake to show you. So I've grabbed both of my main brush pens. So I have my medium nib here and my fine nib here, and this is the Kuretake. So taking a look at it, it looks like it's, I don't think it's the same brand, but they look very, very similar. So this one that they provided in this set is labeled as a medium. Oops. And so you've got just a standard, so I haven't even put any water in here, so the tip is still really hard. So first things first, before we can do any kind of a demo, I need to fill up my brush pen. All right, so I've got my water brush pen all filled up, and I just am going to grab my sketchbook right now. I wasn't sure how I wanted to actually demo these for you guys. So since I haven't really used these pens before, first off, I'm gonna kind of show you, I'll do a pen swatch in my sketchbook here, and then we'll play around with some of the blending, and then I'll grab a piece of nicer paper and show you guys some lettering with them. So, got my random little sketchbook here, find a clean page, there we go. All right, so gonna go ahead, so that I remember, gonna go ahead and label the page. All right, so Stationery Island brush pens. Let's take a look. So I'm gonna just go in rainbow order because obviously that's just the way we go. Oops, all right. So now the cool thing about these, and this is the thing that I really need to play around with, and the reason why I wasn't sure if this paper would work, is that these are, unlike things like the Tombows where it's a felt brush tip, these actually have a normal brush like a water brush pen. So you'll see here when I tried to do this broad stroke, it didn't put down a lot of ink, but when I draw a line, it does. So I think these are going to be the kind of brush that you're going to have to kind of play around with and learn how they work best, for example. So definitely I will not be doing a lettering test in here because I don't think that this paper is going to be very good for that, but in terms of more arty kind of stuff, I think that it'll work just fine. So you can see when I press down more, I get some skipping in the ink, but when I do a fine line, at least on this paper, we'll say, at least on this paper, when I do a fine line, it goes down nicely. I like how vibrant these colors are. Ooh, this one's almost like a teal green. Okay, so that's a first look at all of the colors. I have to say that I'm really curious to see how these brushes hold up over time, especially if you're going to use them to do calligraphy, just because they are more like a real bristle. So I wonder if that means they're going to hold up better or not as well as other types of brush pens. So that will be one of those, you know, time will tell kind of things. So let's take a look at bleed through. So obviously this is sketchbook paper. This is not like the best paper ever. So there is a tiny bit of bleed through if you put down more ink. I want to say that, I mean, this is literally just like sketchbook paper. It might be like 80 weight paper. So I will do a test on better paper in just a second. So they seem like they dry really quickly, and I have to say I really like the colors. You know, all of your main colors are pretty true, like, you know, red, orange, they're nice true colors. And then this is a nice like rich gray. So I have to say I'm really pleased so far with all of the colors. So let's give a test on here. I'm gonna just try and blend a little bit with this brush pen. And actually I need to get the water going in here. There we go. All right, good. So, oops, there we go. Get the brush kind of unstuck from, you know, it's just sent out, stuck together, bristly setup. I don't know what I'm saying. So let's just do a quick, now I have a feeling that the blending is not going to work quite as well on this paper because I chose to do a sketchbook, but we're gonna play around with it because I was just really curious if it would work or not. Oops, I don't want to put down too much water. Okay, so it does blend a little bit, but I have to say that sketchbook paper, Caitlin, this was a poor choice. All right, let's grab something that has nicer paper. So before I test this in something like my Leuchtturm, just because I'm unfamiliar with the product and I don't know how it's going to work, I'm going to go ahead and test it in the back of this Rhodia. So this is actually my old semi-long-term collections bullet journal that I decided I didn't need anymore. So I'm just going to take the back page here and we're going to give it a test. So let's see how this writes on here. Ah, what a difference paper makes. Look at that. So yeah, definitely with these pens, you're gonna want to use smoother paper. So even, I don't really have any watercolor paper handy, but I would be wary, just given how they jumped on here. I have a feeling it would do something similar on watercolor paper. However, using it in something like your notebook, I think is going to be very good. Now, keep in mind that this is Rhodia paper, which means that it's, what are they, 90 or 100 weight, as opposed to Leuchtturm, which is 80. I'll have to confirm that for you guys. But you can see on the smoother paper that they write really smoothly. And I wanted to go ahead and do the dark. And there's no bleed through. There is ghosting, but there is no bleed through on nice smooth paper. So first things first, if you are looking at these for doing things like art, I would be very wary because I think that rougher paper is not going to give you the same result that you would have as if you were to use actual watercolors. However, if you're using them for something like drawing in your bullet journal or doing lettering in your bullet journal and you've got some decent paper, I think it'll work pretty well. So let's go ahead. I'm going to try the gray one because I am obsessed, obviously. I'm going to try the gray and we're going to give lettering a go. So it's nice. The caps seat on really, really well, so you shouldn't have your pens dry out on you, although they are sometimes hard to take off. So let's try lettering. All right, so please excuse my really, really horrible lettering. But this is one of the reasons why I really wanted to try these pens, because like I said before, the brush is actually more like a regular water brush tip. So in terms of lettering, I know for me, learning to letter with these pens was really difficult. Like it took me a long time to figure it out, and I'm still not very good at it. And I only have enough control when I use a fine point. So that was why I really wanted to see how these worked, because they write just like a regular water brush pen, except you don't have to carry around your watercolors. You can just directly use these. Now, the thing I will say is, if you are just starting out with water brush lettering, these are going to be a little bit frustrating to use. I have to say, like, I've been lettering for a while, I'm okay at it, and this kind of looks like a train wreck. So you're definitely going to have to practice with these to get the same kind of effect that you would get with a standard brush pen that's like a felt tip, where it doesn't splay out as much and it's a little bit stiffer when you write. But I have to say, they're really fun to play with. So I do want to try, let's see, what colors can we do? I want to do the two blues, and I want to try blending these two colors together because I'm really curious to see how that works. How do we want to do this? I know what I want to do. So we're going to try lettering again and see, like, now I know I don't press down as much, so I don't get quite as wide of a splay, but I also then have more control. So just a little bit of practice, and I think that these would be really, really fun to letter with. So I'm going to go ahead and try doing some shading. See if I can do this before it dries on me, which, I mean, I have a water brush pen, so it's going to add more water, so it shouldn't be an issue anyway. Let's see. There we go. So give that a go, and oops, don't want to put down too much water because I don't want to flood it. There. Let's see. So I'm barely using any water on here because, especially on the Rhodia, pens take a little bit longer to, or the ink takes a little bit longer to dry when you're working on the Rhodia, so I don't want to drop down too much water on here, but it's blending still really nicely. Let's see. So there, obviously I'm not a pro at blending, so those of you who have more practice with this will probably produce a much prettier result, but I think that still looks fun. And I'm also gonna go ahead and try just kind of a messier blend, because obviously when you're messing with lettering and blending, you have to be a little bit neater, but I wanna see how this blends up here. So that, oh, that looks really cool. So start and do the light, and let's see. Cool. So these blend really nicely. Like, I'm not even squeezing the brush pen to get water, but the ink is still wet enough. And I mean, obviously on a Rhodia, it does take longer to dry, so you'll have to test this also. I'll test it on a bit of my Leuchtturm paper in just a second. But it blends really, really nicely with not too much water needed. So I'm actually going to go ahead and do a little extra. Darken up the bottom. Oops. Ooh, oh, that's fun. All right, so let me go ahead and clean off. Don't want to get blue on everything. Clean off this guy, and I'm going to go ahead and grab my Leuchtturm to show you guys how it goes on there. And actually, let's do really quick. So I had a little bit of extra water on here, so I'm getting a tiny, tiny bit of almost bleed through, but over here when I was pretty light, and up here, there's ghosting, but no bleed through, which is very, very good news. So let's take a look. All of my notebooks open off to the side to make sure they dry before I close them. So let's see, what can we do in here? Oops. What are we up to? I don't want to do it on this because I was using that erasable pen, and I have a feeling that's going to do kind of weird things. Let's take a look in the back here. Yeah, let's go ahead and just do a little test over here, and I'm going to pull out my ruler because that's making it a little bit lumpy. And just in case, I'm going to throw my scratch paper behind the page. There we go. All right, so let's take a look at, so I'm going to try first lettering on here. Let's see. What am I going to write? This is always the question. Oh, I'm just going to write what I always write. All right, so standard lettering. So it's, the Leuchtturm paper is not quite as smooth as the Rhodia, so I'm not sure if you could, I can hear the difference when I'm actually writing. There's more of like a scratchy when I'm writing on the Leuchtturm than when I'm writing on the Rhodia. But in terms of bleed through, so we have ghosting, but no bleed through. And let's take a look at blending. So I'm going to do the same blending test that I did in the Rhodia just to see a similar effect. Oops, got a little messy there. All right, so that. All right, so I did a little bit messier just to see how the blending would work to kind of even everything out. So again, I'm not even pressing the pen, just using whatever little bit of water is on the brush already, and oops, the ink itself, since it's still a little bit wet. All right, so the ink definitely, I think, dries a bit faster on the Leuchtturm than it does on the Rhodia, which is standard for pretty much all inks. That's just the way the paper works. So, ooh, got a little messy there at the end. Okay, so let that dry and I'll show you guys the back of the page. And while we're waiting for that, I'm gonna go ahead and do another little swatch so we can see. So give that, and there. Let's see now. All right, so because the ink does dry a little faster on the Leuchtturm, you can see that, and I was probably a little bit slower, I have that little line delineating where the ink actually started to dry and where I'm starting to blend it. So if you're gonna work on a Leuchtturm, just be careful with especially those lighter colors and work fast. I was a little slow there. So you've got a tiny bit of a line. Let me go ahead, I'm gonna clean off my brush and try and get that a little better. No. Okay, so let's let that dry. Oops. So if I give you guys a comparison here, so I think the ink went down smoother on the Rhodia, and that's just the Rhodia paper. So if you are somebody who uses a Rhodia, these are definitely going to be awesome in terms of blending. In the Leuchtturm, you're just going to have to be careful to work faster because you get more of that as it dries. You see more of the difference on there. And I was also a lot messier on this one than I was on the one in the Rhodia. So let me go just, where's my brush pen? Ah, where did I put it? There we go. So let's see if I can get that a little bit better. I probably won't. I think I let it dry too much. So that's something to be aware in terms of the paper that you want to use with these pens. So let's take a look at the back. So I know that that's not dry yet. So I'm going to just move this guy. Oops. So we are still good. There's ghosting. You're going to get more of the rippling effect on the Leuchtturm just because it's a little bit thinner paper. So if you put down more water, just be careful of that. But it looks like we're good. There's no bleed through, which is awesome. And give you guys a side-by-side comparison, whoops, with the Rhodia. So you'll see there's a little bit less ghosting on the Rhodia. It does ripple a little bit differently than the Leuchtturm does. I'm not sure exactly what happened here. I think I might have just put down a little too much water because it looks like it's starting to bleed through, but like it's not really. Not sure what happened there. But none of the other places actually had any bleed through, so that is good news. Oops. So see, and yeah, got a little tiny bit of transfer because that is still not quite dry. So that is something that definitely be careful. These are going to take a little bit longer to dry just because they are brush pens and they work a little bit more like watercolors, so they are much more, they're a much wetter pen than a standard felt tip brush pen. And be careful with the brush tip itself because it's going to splay more like a real paintbrush rather than a felt tip brush pen. But otherwise, I have to say, I think that these are going to be so much fun to play with. I'm really excited to try these different colors. I really want to try doing lettering with these, but I also want to try playing around and doing some drawings and using them to color in because I love how easily they like mix together, and I think it would be really cool to play around more with this. Again, I'm not as much of an artist in like this sense of it, so I am probably not using them to their full capacity. However, the little bit that I have tried is really fun, and I definitely would recommend, if you're going to play around with these, go for the thickest and smoothest paper that you have, because it seems like that really does make them work that much more smoothly. And just be careful to give yourself enough time to let them dry before you decide to close your book, for example. But yeah, so that is the brush pen set from Stationery Island. You get 12 brush pens plus a water brush pen in the set. And like I said before, I will go ahead and drop down in the description box so you guys have the link to the product as well as the price and all of that. If I remember, they are not too pricey, but I don't remember off the top of my head, so I don't want to say something that's incorrect. And yeah, I am super excited to play around with these even more. And it's nice to know that even in my Loic term, they are definitely, it's definitely something that I can use in here when I want to do some fun lettering and fun headers and that kind of stuff. So if you guys have any comments or questions, or if you guys have used these brush pens, leave me a comment or a question down in the description box. Let me know what you guys think, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.